Hello, Year 9. We're talking about causes of World War One. And before you think, gosh, when are we going to get to the war? Let's remember this. The important thing to study is the causes of World War One. What causes the outbreak of this? It's true that there is an immediate trigger for the event. That's Gavrilo Princip, who kills Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo. But it's more complicated than that. Of course it is. We can't just explain something that kills 20 million people by the actions of a 19-year-old. Why does that happen? So here's a couple of things to think about. First of all, there is no simple explanation for something that is so big and so tragic as this, and we're not trying to explain all of it. We're trying to unpack parts of it. Aside from that trigger, what you will find when you read about World War One and the outbreak of World War One, once again, a long series of abstract nouns. Words like nationalism and imperialism, arms races, militarism. And once again, like the answer to dealing with those words is not to define them. If you try to define them, you're going to end up with word salad. What we're interested in is thinking about them as a process and asking what were the participants in that process and who did what. For example, Britain's empire across the world, what's driving that? And we've already done a lot of work towards that in our colonisation unit. A lot of it turns out to be the need for resources. Britain is industrialising, they're having a massive population explosion. They need things like cotton, for example, from their colonies just so that they can clothe people. And of course, as we know, the more that those resources are produced, the more that creates a demand and so on, and things escalate. The same thing is starting to happen in other countries, particularly France and Germany, who are going to be key players in World War One. It's not happening. Where it's not happening, it's further to the east, in these ancient empires. The Ottoman Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Russian. Ancient is a bit strong, but the Ottoman Empire does actually date back all the way to the fall of the Roman Empire. These countries have been sitting there for a very long time. They're faced with a threat of nationalism, the idea that people living inside those empires might decide that, like France or Germany or like modern countries, they can separate and become their own nations. If they do, empires will fall apart, and with them will go all those resources that are needed to industrialise. It's worth thinking about where countries are in all this. Modern countries towards the edge, Western countries like Britain, France and Germany are ultimately going to have huge numbers of people and huge amounts of technology to fight the war that's coming. Other countries, such as Russia and Austria and the Ottoman Empire, are destined to collapse. That's what's going to happen by the end of World War One. So that's one way to think about World War One, is the collapse of empires in the East, being replaced by new nations in the West that more and more resemble the new countries that we've seen developing in the Industrial Revolution, countries like Britain and France and Germany. When all this kicks off, what will happen? Well, the Ottoman Empire is falling apart. The Austro-Hungarian Empire is trying to grab small parts of that empire as they fall. And that's what happens in Sarajevo. But of course, the citizens of those countries don't want to swap one empire for another. They want to create their own nations. That's the motivation behind 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip and the Black Hand Organisation, right? An independent Serb nation. Alliances are a big part of this as well. If we see conflict coming, we're looking for friends to back us up. Serbia's closest friend is Russia. Why? Partly because of language connections. They're both Slavic connections, but also because people tend to find alliances on the other side of neighbours that they don't like. Serbia has a strong link with Russia, partly because Austria-Hungary is sitting between those two countries. France has been developing a relationship with Russia for a very long time because Germany is such a great threat that their best way to deal with this is to have an enemy on the other side and force Germany into a war on two fronts if a war were to happen. Britain, as always, is going to try to stay out of this. They're an island nation. They don't want to get drawn into a war in Europe. Though the last time that they did, 1815, 100 years ago, they won the Battle of Waterloo and took credit for ending one of Europe's bloodiest conflicts. Whether that's entirely true is another matter. But that's how they remember it. And that's important. Okay, so what's going to happen? Well, there's going to be an assassination, a nationalist assassination of Franz Ferdinand, the Archduke, next in line to succeed in the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. When that happens, Austria is going to be looking for revenge, maybe, or at least looking for an opportunity to take over areas from the Ottoman Empire, to smash this nationalism and rebuild their empire. They're looking for their buddy Germany to support them. Why do they want Germany? Because Germany is a new nation industrializing with lots to prove. It needs space and resources to continue to industrialize. It's got a massive population to build itself a massive high-tech army. Serbia needs help. Where do they look? Of course, they look to Russia. Russia doesn't want Austria-Hungary to expand into the Balkan areas and take over their Serbian friends. Serbia is going to declare war on Austria-Hungary, just as Austria declares war on Serbia and Germany declares war on Serbia. Now Germany is in a war with Russia. The problem is that the alliance that France has been building for defensive reasons is now going to trigger the need for France to go to war with Germany. Austria is at war with Serbia. Russia is helping Serbia. Serbia is now at war with Austria-Hungary and Germany. So Russia's at war with Germany. Now Russia is calling on France. Now France is at war with Germany. Now here's the thing. The Germans knew that there was trouble coming. They knew that eventually they'd be fighting war on two fronts. What do they know about Russia? Russia is massive. It's going to take Russia a long time to get themselves together. So the German plan is to attack France first. They've done this before in 1871 and they know that they can do it. The problem is they know the French are ready for them. So what do? They decide to pick the flattest land that they can to attack France, Belgium. They don't call them this place the Low Countries for nothing. There's very little geographically to stop the Germans from rolling into France through Belgium. And this is where Britain comes in. Because if you look at a map, you can see that Belgium is very close to Britain. And a German-occupied Belgium is not good news for Britain. So it's not the alliance with France that triggers Britain's entry into the war. It's Belgium. They're pledged to defend Belgian neutrality, and that's where Britain finds itself involved in World War I, and that's how Australia does too. And if you don't believe me, you find this. Australia's engagement in the Western Front mostly happens in Belgium for that reason. So we've got a chain reaction across alliances triggered by the assassination in Sarajevo.